Man, we've seen everything from turds to dirt eating to my rosy nubile ass being exposed to the elements and then paddled relentlessly. What possibly could follow? Well, I'll tell you what, it's about to get serious, baby. Also, on a side note, you might be wondering who the hell that guy is. No explanation, but he's there now because I had to reshoot the intro because somehow I lost it. Anyway, let's get to it, baby!
There I was in uniform, looking at the art teacher.
So what do I got for 5th grade? 5th grade, again, the anxiety popped up again because I knew this was my last year here in middle school. I'm going to have to go to junior high next year. And junior high hung like the sword of Damocles over my stinky balls, man. Because, as I mentioned before, I was a warm-up wearing mofo guy. And they had a dress code in junior high. And there were no warm-ups in that dress code, let me tell you that right now. And I was like, oh no, man. I was so attached to fucking warm-ups, guy. So that was an update on my anxiety at that point. But still, I had a whole last year to go where I didn't have to worry about the Walmart. Well, yeah, I did get them at Walmart. The warm-up sitch. So, yeah, man. I said, let's see what this year holds. What up with that? So this year I had a diminutive man as a teacher. This was what I guess nowadays you would refer to as a manlet. You know, he was literally a small individual that looked straight out of Leave It to Beaver, man. Just really clean-cut 50s style dude. And I don't know, man. It had to be like in his mid to late 30s. He wasn't that old, you know. And but man, he looked like he belonged in the 50s, you know. So anyway, I had this teacher. He was pretty fucking rad. He had this whole competitive thing with another teacher. With Halloween costumes. You know, each year they try to beat each other, and that other teacher would always win. Well, this was the year he won, you know, so that was big for him. You know, everybody's like, oh shit, he beat that other guy? Holy shit. And to be fair, not only was his costume better, he was a hobo, by the way.
Ironic.
But the other guy dressed up as Freddy Krueger. What the fuck are you doing as Freddy Krueger in a goddamn middle school guy? So this guy, it seemed to be his year, man. Everybody's like, all right. Old boy doing his thing, baby. He was a cool teacher, all that jazz, you know. Well, this is the story that sticks out the most about this year. Now, I'm not 100% brushed up on every detail. It's just one of those things that was pretty much hearsay after the fact, with the exception of a few things that were corroborated. But that turned out to be that teacher's last year. And, of course, because he was a beloved teacher, a lot of questions were asked by former students and, you know, just in general, right? And word gets around, you know, and other teachers talk and all that jazz. Something happened in this guy's life. Now, I don't know exactly what the fuck it was, but it ended with him being fired from the school. So it had to be school-related to some extent and or enough that it would tarnish the school's reputation if he remained. But he got fucking fired. I met a teacher that was friends with him, and he revealed that he had not only gotten fired, he didn't tell me why he got fired, to his credit, and that just made it all the more mysterious, especially in hindsight, you know. But he revealed that he was having a very hard time finding a job. So, you know, is that what I think it means? I don't know, man. And that he had started, you know, hitting the old drinky poo. And then he told me eventually that he did find a job, and it was at a casket making company. And I was like, what? Holy shit, this is just getting weird as hell, guy. Last I heard, the guy had lost the job because of the drink, you know. And I never heard anything about this teacher again. I was kind of afraid to ask more. But that unfortunately stands out because he was such a cool guy. Such a beloved fixture of my youth, you know, this teacher, that it ended in this sudden dive into apparent tragedy. I was like, holy shit, man. What is that? You know? Now, tangentially related to this story, he had kind of like a tense rivalry. You know, sitting here editing it, I was thinking, man, these were not the only two rivalries old boy had. He had quite a few, you know, and most of them were not friendly. So I'm like, maybe he ended up slapping a fool across the face because of one of these rivalries, and that's why he got fired. I don't know. Point is, dude was a hater-ass bitch, apparently. Tense rivalry with this teacher that was basically the GT teacher. And this teacher showed a lot of preference towards her students. So much so that all her students just remained in the GT class. And so while we would go there for an hour, she just had all these kids and treated them, you know, like gods on earth. Like she was like, oh, your kids stink compared to my kids. Here's the cool part about that. She ended up getting fired that year too, because my teacher, again, the tense rivalry between them was really, he thought the chick was a bitch. And everybody fucking loved this teacher. All the other teachers loved her, I'm sorry. Her students fucking adulated her. And I think every student was like, I wish I was in her class, you know? Even me. And I loved my teacher. I was like, man, that class seems rad though. Well, this teacher ended up stealing a bunch of kids' money because she did this like fun, you know how kids how teachers kind of pool money from kids to do something like a big party or a big whatever. She'd been a teacher that had these kids since they came into middle school for 3 years. Boom, boom, boom. So it was the same kids. And on that last year, she did one of these fundraisers, split with all the fucking money. And by this year, she had, I guess, gotten this, you know, from the previous year, gotten all the parents' trust and all that stuff. So it was going to be this big blowout, man. Like, I think it was for Thanksgiving, because I remember it being, you know, the school year was still active. I mean, obviously it was active, but I'm saying, like, in the midst of it, not towards the end or whatever like that. You'd think it'd be towards the end, but no. It was, like, somewhere around Thanksgiving, Christmas. I want to say it was Thanksgiving, though. She was like, let's pool our money, let's do this. And she'd taken them on fucking, like, cool ass trips before. You know, we'd go to some rinky dink fucking shitty museum that stunk. You know, one time we went to a fucking cotton refinery. Are they called refiners? Cotton, wherever the fuck they clean cotton. Delinter? I don't know what the fuck. That sucked. But she would take them to badass trips, and they would always be funded by the parents mainly, you know, and so she had gained their trust, and they gave her tons of money for this big blow. Oh, this is the last year I'm going to have these kids. Here's all this money. Let's do this thing. And she just fucking left. She left the fucking place with the money, guy. Don't mind me. Just gnawing on some fucking pizza rolls. Great value, because, you know, ain't going to shell out for some quality ones. But anyway, I contacted someone that had her class directly. Old friend, and he confirmed that it was for Thanksgiving. They were like raising to have this humongous dinner that was not just for the kids, but that purportedly was going to be for the families and all that stuff. And she was also starting to raise money for a Christmas blowout. So she uses this double whammy of an excuse to, you know, pile in all this money from these kids, parents who she had gained the trust of for all these years. And she just left, boy. She even took the turkeys. What the fuck? 6th grade, baby. Now I'm in junior high. Can't wear warm-ups anymore. Wearing mad uncomfortable jeans for the first time in my life. I'm like, man, these boys are stiff as hell. Why does anybody like this shits? But whatever. My ass got used to it, so that's that. This was a big year for me. Huge, even. Because this was the year that I met who I would eventually refer to as my mentor. This guy, I can't even tell you how much he impacted my life. Everything that I like, everything that I adore and love in art, cinema, music, you know, this guy lived and breathed art. And he gave me this gift because I grew up in a very isolated circumstance, you know. I only knew my family and, of course, the people at school. But being in this cult, as aforementioned in the other videos, I didn't get to do anything beyond the time that I spent in school with people. And of course, when you're in school, you're mostly learning, rather than enjoying your time. So I grew up with in a very restrictive environment because of that. I didn't see a movie as intended until fucking Terminator 1 came out. I'm sorry, Terminator 2 came out. That's the first movie I saw in a theater as intended. I noticed I didn't specify specifically why the Terminator 2 thing is relevant, but that means I was 10 years old when I first saw a movie as intended. And really, a couple of months or so before that, I saw a full movie, front to back, not in the theater though. But that was literally the first time, that happened for me. Art was not a thing for me. My parents, they were encouraging because obviously there was a creative spark in me. And they would buy me a lot of Legos. So Al will like that. Or hate it. Remember that time when he said he hated Legos? I can't find it, but I'm going to find it and I'm going to prove it. But anyway, Al aside and his hate of Legos. They bought me a lot of Legos and I would make these gargantuan constructions. I didn't have Legos like, here's a set. Did they even make those back then? Like, this is the fucking movie tie-in set or shit? I don't think they did. But anyway, whatever. It was just plain Legos. Sometimes there were knockoff Legos and those sucked. Because they wouldn't, mix together well. But they would buy me so many fucking Legos, man. And they noticed early on that I was creative. And they would encourage that by buying me more Legos. And they noticed that my play patterns were pretty out there. And I would spend hours doing it. Now, I know a lot of kids do that. But I was like about it, I guess because I really had nothing else to do. So they would buy me a lot of toys whenever they could, secondhand. But when they could, and then I would have a lot of toys. And as far as I can tell, they got a kick out of watching me create imaginative worlds in my head. That was the extent, though, of I guess being creative. I drew a little bit, but it wasn't something I was passionate about or anything. But come 6th grade, it changed, man. I went to this guy's class, and he just had such a passion for art of all kind. Obviously, he was teaching us more about painting and drawing, but every hour that I spent in his art class, he would squeeze as much culture into it as he could. Then he would tell anybody that was willing, that after school he was available for an hour or two just to hang out and learn more. So I started going to his after school sessions there. And it just changed my fucking life, man. This is one of the most important people in my life. When I hear people say that this teacher was instrumental to me, this teacher changed my life, I know they ain't lying, because you just come across those. And this guy was the most influential person in my life outside of, my family. Everything, man. He introduced me to Stephen King, to Lovecraft, to movie scores and appreciating them before I even saw movies at length, movies and shows. He would bring me tapes to watch, books to read. He was not stingy with sharing material that now I recognize, he had some amazing collectible stuff, and he was not unwilling to let a child borrow it if it meant that he would experience it, and he also made me love art. And a lot of the reason I don't draw anymore is I kind of lost my passion for it, not being around him. He was what inspired me to draw, because he was like, man, that's good, do this, do that, and it was just something about him that made me want to draw, and that's not a thing anymore. So eventually I lost my passion for art, but I didn't lose my passion for everything. And I could still draw, and if I lean into it and get in the swing of it, I think I could be really good at it again. But yeah, you know, I didn't lose my passion for the other stuff he introduced me thing. It influences me to this day. Everything that I consume that's art related in whatever format, I think, I wonder what he would think about this. I know that he would like this. And he was one of those people that even if he didn't approve of it, you know, he approved that you liked it, that you were finding something in it. You know, very encouraging guy. And I just learned so much from him, man. And I admired him and loved him dearly, you know. And he, unfortunately, he passed away in a very tragic fashion. And this was years later, 2008, I'm sorry. But I had long graduated from high school by then. And I mentioned high school because I had him for art the 3 years, you know, not just 6th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And every year I would go after school as well and just take in his being, his person, right? And there was I don't know, man. He was a life-changing individual. I can't explain it beyond that. I mean, there's a lot I can explain, really, but it wouldn't do him justice, you know? When I moved on to high school, I would still go to his class, man, after school. And we would spend hours together, man. And every time he was like I don't know, man. He had such a wealth of culture in him. It was new every time, man. I don't know how he did it. Every time something new. Have you seen this? Have you experienced this? Have you tried this? Just, I mean, I wish I knew people like him. But there's not been many like him. There hasn't been any like him. You know, there's been people that are on another level that come close to him, but just on another level, you know? But he was just so there, you know? Anyway, somewhere along my high school career, he ended up deciding to move to another school district. And that really, like, hurt, obviously. Not his decision to go there, but, you know, that I wouldn't get to see him and hang out with him anymore. You know? But at the same time, it felt good that there was going to be, like, entire swaths of people that would get to experience him, you know? So that was good. But also, this is something that I think about very often. I had seen this side of him pop up every now and then, even from junior high when I first met him, all the way to me going after school during the high school years that he was still there. Every now and then there was like some darkness there, right? Never directed at me, but definitely it would pop up towards other people. And I guess when you admire someone, you just choose to willingly ignore that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to acknowledge that. It's just a thing that happened. Oh, he was just a little angry or upset or whatever. You know? Or adults do it different. I don't know. You know? You just kind of shove it under the rug. But eventually it would become obvious that there was a problem. Yeah, man, I would see him get upset sometimes at people, and he would turn into somebody else, basically, right? he would get red and he would be livid and frothing almost with rage, man. And I saw it several times, sometimes with a student, sometimes with another teacher. Several instances, right? One time with a UPS guy that delivered something after school. You know, it was busted. And it was just like, it was this thing that I would occasionally see. And again, I attribute it to the fact that, you know, I admired this guy, that I never questioned it. Now, obviously, him as an adult and knowing what was going on with him, he would apologize and then, you know, be like, you know, I'm sorry that you got to see that, blah, 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 blah. But there was never an elaboration, right? I say all that to say this. When I moved on to high school, you know, I would visit him after school still, like I mentioned, right? But I always asked permission, like, hey, you know, it's a new school year. Hey, is it okay if I show up this year? Because I didn't want to also step on his time, right? And he was always very welcoming. Yeah, of course, man, let's do it. And for another year, we'd hang out after school, right? But the last year that he was there, I sent a friend that happened to be a neighbor to go ask him, you know, hey, is it okay if Ahab drops in this year again? And so she came back to me when I got home. You know, she lived a few doors over. She come back to me and she's like, hey, I asked him and you're not going to like what he said. And I thought it was a joke. Like, okay, well, what'd he say? And she said that he said, tell that fat son of a bitch that I don't want to see him. And I laughed it off, and he's like, I told her, oh, that's just how we joke, right? But that wasn't ever our relationship, right? So once she left, I was like, what the fuck? You know, it shook my fucking world. Like, just imagine whoever's most important to you telling you to fuck off, you know? It shook me to the core, man, and wounded me, you know? Because it wasn't a joke. It wasn't a jest or anything like that, you know? There was no grounds for that between us. And it just bugged me. And the whole ass month later, my neighbor, / friend, comes up to me again and she tells me, hey, he wants you to go visit him. He says to please go visit him. I didn't even hesitate, man. I just went back there and of course that was weighing on my head what he had said, but I was like, there has to be an explanation. And the big part of me, of course, was like, you know, anything he says, I'm okay with. I'm okay with whatever, as long as we can get back to where we were. And that's not exactly good thinking, but it's exactly what I was thinking, right? And I went back and he let me in. There was nobody there, you know. As the years had passed, not many people showed up after school to hang out with him and stuff like that. He sat me down and he's like, hey man, let's draw. And, you know, we were drawing and there was silence, and the silence was pregnant with expectation, you know, from my side and his. And then he laid it on me, you know. First he apologized profusely. And then, you know, I told him he didn't have to. That it was okay. That I understood even though I didn't. You know. But he apologized. He said he didn't mean any of it. And, you know, maybe some of you are like, yeah, man, I mean, everybody says that, but did he or didn't he? Well, he explained. He revealed to me that he had been struggling, I don't know if all his life, but definitely for a while, a long time, with mental illness, bipolar disorder. And that sometimes anything would trigger it. And for the first time, knowing him all those years, all those weird little standout moments just clicked. Like, oh man, that's what was happening. He lost his cool and just went ballistic during those moments. You know, that made sense. But what sucked worse than him having that and having to go through it was that he said that it was getting worse and that he didn't know if it was something else or whatever. But the first thing he told me was that his condition would make him grind his teeth. And he was an avid jazz musician. He loved it. Maybe more than he loved painting and movies and all that stuff. He loved it. He would play, he would freestyle, he would jam, you know. Oftentimes he would invite me to go see him perform. I only got the privilege to do so once because in high school I didn't have transportation or anything like that. But afterwards I did. And anyway, it said it was interfering with him because he would grind his teeth and his jaw would lock and he just couldn't hold the wood part of the saxophone. It just wouldn't fit in his mouth well, I guess. I mean, I'm not a musician, so I don't exactly know the logistics of that, but basically he was having trouble doing what he loved. On top of that, you know, there was nervous elements that were interfering with him drawing. And then he revealed to me that he had tried to get into a relationship with the neighboring teacher. And there was some tension. I had actually witnessed them have, you know, a pretty out and out verbal spat before. I was the only one there in the room, like, what the fuck, you know? But nothing about what they were saying seemed to suggest that they were going out or potentially going out. I don't even really know the extent of it, but he revealed that really fucked his head up, and you know, just all these issues, man. And I saw this guy that I admired just you know, I guess reduced to fragile humanity, you know? And we're all like that to some degree. But we all put up like a facade of strength as much as we can, and that really does, no matter how ineffective, it does deflect further investigating or indulging the other person's feelings. So no matter how good you are at artifice, you know, great or bad, the effect's still there. You know, people are like, oh, okay, he's fine. You know, I don't know why that is. Maybe it's for a variety of reasons, but that effect still works. But here was a man just laying himself bare, man. And, you know, it hurt to see him like that. But, you know, it kind of brought us closer together. I visited him as often as I could, you know, until he eventually left for the greener pastures, as it were. A part of me was like, maybe the change of scenery will help him. You know, maybe that was foolish of me because, you know, hey, man, mental illness is not that easy to shake off, you know, if ever. So he moved on, and we kept in communication through email. Like I told you one time, I went to go see him play. You know, time passes, and if you're not in constant contact with somebody physically, you know, it drives a wedge in between you. Not, you know, there was no awkwardness or anything like that. It's just, you know, you don't see each other as much, or you don't talk to each other as much. And as the time passed, that grew and grew and grew. And then one year, which happened to be the year that I lost my grandmother, which that alone was a huge impact. Because she was not even our blood grandmother. She was literally a woman that felt sympathy for my mother, empathy and love for my mother, and picked her up off the streets and gave us everything, man. a home. Her entire life was dedicated to us. All her life dedicated to us. And we weren't even blood relatives. Our blood relatives disregarded us. But she took us in. And that year, I lost her. This was 2008. I know I keep saying 2008, but just to clarify, this all happened in 2009. You know, I wasn't sure about it at the beginning of the story there, 2008, 2009, but it was actually 2009 that this stuff happened. Just felt I needed to clarify that, if only out of respect for the situation. But anyway, let's get back to it. Man, as important as she was, man, it almost was kind of a relief to see her go, because she had lost her... She had developed a brain tumor. So she didn't remember us anymore. We did a whole video on this experience, and we've never put it out because of a variety of reasons, but it was a huge impact, man. She got this brain tumor, she lost her memory and capacities, and then they removed it, and she regained them, and we had her for a good length of time after that. And then one day it just came back. And then not long after that, she was gone. But like I said, it was almost a relief, because it was torture to see someone you love so much not be there, and yet be there. So I took her death a lot better than I thought I was going to take it. And not... Let's see. Not even 5 months later, I get the news that this teacher, this fucking hero in my life, man, he had disappeared. And, you know, you read the details, you know, that he had left a note for his mother telling her that he loved her, and that they'd last seen him here, and that they found this there, and you're like, logically, you understand what has happened. But everybody that knew him didn't want that to be true. So you hold on to hope. And so for the next stretch of months, it was like, yeah, he's going to show up, man. They're going to find out that he's over here, he's over there, whatever, right? But right around December-ish of the same year, his remains were found in the desert. Skull, to be precise, among a few other things. He had basically gone out there to die, to return to nature. And, you know, that was that. Consumed by nature. Not long after that, his mother got in contact with me through one of my ex-girlfriends, which she also held him very near and dear to her heart. And she got in contact with her, and he said, and she gave her my email, and she's like, hey, this is who I am. I feel that Eric would want you to have this thing. Can I send it to you? And I said, absolutely. And what I got in the mail was this animated cell Spider-Man that I had saved up money as a kid to buy and give him as a gift, because, you know, I loved him, you know, and I wanted to show some form of appreciation. I gave that to him in junior high. And he framed it. And according to his mother, he kept it up on display all those years. And what really, really, really hurts and yet felt good, I guess, was that that she told me that he would often speak of me. And that blew my mind, man. All that time, and I was enough of a presence for this woman to reach out and go like, man, this is you. And he spoke of you. Not a day goes by that I don't think of him. And I don't think back. You know? I don't know how many of you experience this, but I certainly do. Whenever I fail at life, which is often, I think of the people that I care about and how that may impress upon my failure. You know? And it's a burden. If you experience that, it's probably with your family members, your loved ones, wife, kids, mom, whatever. And even though he's gone, whenever I think that way, of course I think of my mom. You know, Guntik, whatever. But I also think of him. What would he think? That's how important he was to me.